Sleep is not just a passive state where the brain shuts off. It's a highly active, regulated process that follows deep biological rhythms and intricate neurochemical signaling. At the core of this regulation is the circadian rhythm, an internal clock system that dictates the cycle of sleep and wakefulness in roughly 24-hour intervals. This rhythm is not abstract. It's biologically encoded and coordinated by a brain region called the suprachiasmatic asthmatic nucleus, or SCN, located in the hypothalamus. The SCN contains approximately 20 zero neurons that fire in coordinated patterns based on light cues, temperature changes, and behaviors such as eating and physical activity. This internal clock synchronizes with the external environment through cues known as Zeitgebers, which is a German word meaning time givers. The most powerful Zeitgeber is light, specifically sunlight. When photons hit specialized cells in the retina known as melanops containing retinal ganglion cells, they transmit signals directly to the SCN via the retinohypothalamic tract. This interaction helps align your internal biological rhythm with the external light, dark cycle. The result is a cascade of downstream effects. Cortisol levels rise to promote wakefulness, body temperature increases, and melatonin secretion is suppressed. These changes help you feel alert and oriented during the day. As evening approaches and light diminishes, this process reverses. Melatonin, a hormone secreted by the pineal gland, begins to rise. It doesn't cause sleep directly, but rather signals to the body that the sleep phase should begin soon. In essence, melatonin acts as a biological darkness detector, telling your brain and body that it's time to begin the descent into sleep. That signal starts a secondary cascade. Body temperature begins to fall, reaction times slow, and the mind becomes less interested in environmental stimuli. This sets the stage for sleep onset, which is a gradual, orchestrated shutdown of conscious awareness. From a physiological perspective, the pressure to sleep is governed by two key systems working in parallel: the circadian alerting system and the homeostatic sleep drive. The homeostatic component is primarily regulated by a molecule called adenosine, a byproduct of cellular energy consumption, ATP breakdown. Adenosine builds up in the brain throughout the day, creating a mounting pressure to sleep. Caffeine, interestingly, doesn't give you energy per se. It works by blocking adenosine receptors, effectively muting your awareness of sleep pressure. But once caffeine wears off, that adenosine is still there, which is why caffeine crashes can feel sudden and intense. Once sleep begins, the brain doesn't enter a uniform state. It cycles through different sleep stages, each defined by specific patterns of brain activity measured via EEG electroencephalogram. These stages are categorized into two major types: non-REM NREM and REM rapid eye movement sleep. Each full cycle lasts approximately 90 minutes and repeats 4 to 6 times per night in a healthy adult. NREM sleep is further broken into 3 stages: N1, N2, and N3. Stage N1 is light sleep, the bridge between wakefulness and unconsciousness. Brain activity slows, muscles relax, and the person can easily be awakened. Stage N2 is deeper, marked by the appearance of sleep spindles and K-complexes, which are bursts of neural oscillatory activity that help with memory consolidation and sensory disconnection. Stage N3 is the deepest part of NREM sleep, also known as slow wave sleep, SWS, or deep sleep. This stage is dominated by delta waves, high amplitude, low frequency brainwaves. It's during this phase that the brain performs critical housekeeping functions, including glymphatic clearance, a process in which cerebrospinal fluid washes out toxic metabolites such as beta, amyloid, and tau proteins, which are implicated in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. Additionally, during deep sleep, the pituitary gland releases growth hormone, facilitating muscle repair, cellular regeneration, and immune system modulation. This is why sleep is not just a brain process but a whole body recovery state. NREM sleep is also associated with the strengthening of declarative memories, facts, concepts, and episodes you consciously remember. This is part of what's referred to as memory consolidation, the transformation of short-term memories into long-term storage. As the sleep cycle continues, the brain transitions into REM sleep, typically occurring 60-90 minutes after initial sleep onset. This phase is paradoxical. While the brain is highly active, the body is paralyzed due to the suppression of motor neurons by the brainstem. This paralysis prevents us from physically acting out our dreams. REM is characterized by rapid eye movements, vivid dreaming, and an EEG pattern that resembles wakefulness. However, the brain activity during REM is unique. There's heightened activation in the amygdala and hippocampus, which are regions involved in emotion and memory, while the prefrontal cortex, responsible for logic and judgment, becomes less active. This explains why dreams often feel emotionally intense but illogical or nonlinear. REM sleep is essential for emotional processing, creativity, and procedural memory, the kind of learning involved in skills like riding a bike or playing an instrument. Furthermore, studies have shown that REM sleep can help decouple emotion from traumatic experiences, allowing people to recall difficult memories with reduced physiological stress responses over time. In a very real sense, dreaming during REM acts like an overnight therapy session for your brain. The proportion of these stages isn't fixed across the night. Early in the night, you get more deep NREM sleep. In the latter half, REM sleep becomes more dominant. This is why sleep duration matters. Cutting your sleep short by even 1 hour can drastically reduce the amount of REM you get, impairing both memory and mood the next day. Interestingly, these cycles also shift over the lifespan. Infants spend up to 50% of their sleep in REM, which is thought to aid neurodevelopment. As we age, the amount of deep sleep we get decreases, which is one reason why older adults often experience fragmented or light sleep. However, some of this reduction can be mitigated through behavioral interventions and consistent sleep routines. Temperature plays a role throughout these processes. The circadian rhythm of core body temperature typically peaks in the late afternoon and declines at night to signal the approach of sleep. This drop is necessary for initiating and maintaining sleep. Environmental and behavioral manipulations can affect this rhythm. For instance, taking a warm bath or shower 1 to 2 hours before bed paradoxically causes a drop in core temperature as the body sheds heat through the skin. This facilitates sleep onset. Similarly, a cool room temperature, roughly 65-68 degrees F or 18-20 degrees C, has been shown to improve both the onset and depth of sleep. The autonomic nervous system also plays a role in sleep transitions. The shift from sympathetic dominance, alert, active, stress, ready, to parasympathetic dominance, calm, restorative, digestion, and rest is critical. This is why pre-sleep routines matter. Activities that calm the nervous system, like deep nasal breathing, meditation, or even light stretching, can nudge the body into a sleep-ready state by increasing parasympathetic tone. The physiological sigh, a natural breathing pattern involving 2 short inhales followed by a long exhale, is particularly effective for reducing autonomic arousal and initiating parasympathetic dominance. Finally, we must recognize the feedback loop between sleep and other biological systems. Sleep influences the endocrine system, including testosterone, estrogen, insulin sensitivity, and appetite hormones like ghrelin and leptin. Poor sleep skews this hormonal balance, increasing cravings, reducing satiety, and promoting fat storage. Sleep also regulates immune function. 1 night of sleep deprivation significantly reduces natural killer cell activity, which impairs the body's ability to fight off infections and even tumors. Sleep isn't a singular behavior, but a biological symphony orchestrated by neural networks, hormones, electrical rhythms, and environmental inputs. The better we understand its components, the circadian clock, sleep architecture, and molecular players like melatonin and adenosine, the more empowered we are to optimize it. Whether your goal is high performance, emotional resilience, or long term health, the science is clear. Sleep is not optional. It is the foundation upon which every other pillar of health stands. The circadian clock is the master regulator of sleep and wakefulness, and optimizing it requires both a deep understanding of how it functions and the practical tools to align it properly. While it might seem abstract, the circadian rhythm is a real biological system driven by neurons, light, sensitive proteins, hormonal fluctuations, and behavior-dependent cues. This internal timing mechanism governs not only when we feel sleepy or alert, but also when we digest food most efficiently, when we are strongest, and even when we're most emotionally resilient. At the core of this biological timing system is a group of neurons located in the suprachiasmatic nucleus SCN of the hypothalamus. This structure is tiny, just about the size of a grain of rice, but it serves as the central clock for the entire body. It receives direct input from the eyes, specifically from a class of cells known as intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, iPRGCs, which contain a light-sensitive pigment called melanopsin. Unlike the rods and cones that process images and colors, these cells exist solely to detect overall light levels, especially in the blue spectrum, and send that data to the SCN. This light input sets the phase of the circadian rhythm, effectively anchoring our biological clock to the 24-hour day. It controls everything from sleep-wake cycles to hormone release, body temperature, and mood, regulating neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. One of the most powerful things we can do to regulate our sleep is to get sunlight exposure early in the day, ideally within the first 30 to 60 minutes of waking. This anchors our circadian rhythm and triggers a healthy cortisol pulse. Cortisol, often mischaracterized solely as a stress hormone, is crucial in this context. When released in the morning in response to bright light, it increases alertness, supports metabolism, and enhances focus. This morning light exposure does more than just wake you up. It sets a biological timer that counts forward about 14 to 16 hours, at which point melatonin will begin to rise, preparing your body for sleep. This explains why people who don't get sufficient light in the morning, or who spend their mornings in dimly lit indoor spaces, often experience delayed melatonin in production and difficulty falling asleep at night. For people living in northern latitudes or during the winter months, where morning sunlight is limited, bright light therapy boxes, at least 10 0 lux, can be used to simulate natural sunlight. It's the intensity and spectral composition of the light that matters most, not whether it's artificial or natural. The key is to get it into the eyes, never through windows or sunglasses, as those block key wavelengths. As important as morning light is, avoiding bright light in the evening is equally critical. After the sun sets, exposure to bright artificial light, especially from screens, LED bulbs, or fluorescent lighting, can send a confusing signal to the SCN that it's still daytime. This suppresses melatonin in release and delays the body's preparation for sleep. Blue light, which is emitted in high quantities from electronic screens, is particularly problematic because melanopsin is most sensitive to that part of the light spectrum. Even just a few minutes of bright light exposure between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. can cause melatonin in suppression and disrupt sleep architecture. This is why dimming your environment at night, using warm, hued lighting, and minimizing screen time 1-2 hours before bed can significantly enhance your ability to fall asleep and stay asleep. Using red or amber light bulbs in bedrooms and bathrooms can help preserve the body's melatonin in rhythm while still allowing for safe movement and visibility. While light is the primary Zeitgeber for the central clock in the brain, temperature plays a crucial role as well. The body's core temperature follows a daily rhythm, peaking in the late afternoon and reaching its lowest point in the early hours of the morning. This temperature drop is not just a side effect of sleep, it is a requirement for sleep to occur. When core temperature drops by about 1 degree Fahrenheit, it initiates drowsiness and helps maintain deep sleep. This is why a cooler sleep environment, generally around 18-20 degrees C, 65-68 degrees F, is optimal. Wearing socks to bed may seem counterintuitive, but warming the extremities helps dilate blood vessels and promotes heat loss from the core, thereby lowering internal temperature and supporting sleep onset. One of the most effective behavioral tools for leveraging this temperature mechanism is to take a warm shower or bath 1-2 hours before bed. The warm water causes surface vasodilation, drawing heat to the skin. After you exit the bath or shower, this heat dissipates rapidly, causing a drop in core body temperature that mimics the natural thermoregulatory cascade leading to sleep. This has been shown in several studies to reduce sleep latency and increase deep sleep percentages. Eating and physical activity also provide timing cues for the body, particularly for peripheral clocks in organs like the liver, pancreas, and gut. While the SCN sets the master rhythm, these peripheral clocks can become misaligned if behaviors like eating or exercising happen at odd hours. For instance, eating a large meal late at night can delay melatonin in production, raise body temperature, and activate digestive processes that interfere with sleep. This is why aligning your last meal with the descending limb of your circadian temperature curve, typically 2-3 hours before bed, is ideal. Similarly, while exercise is beneficial for sleep overall, timing matters. Exercise early in the day can enhance wakefulness, body temperature rhythm, and sleep depth at night. But intense workouts done too close to bedtime can increase adrenaline, core temperature, and alertness, all of which can make it harder to fall asleep. If late workouts are unavoidable, cold showers or passive cooling techniques, like cold drinks or ice packs on the neck, can help rapidly bring temperature and arousal down. Caffeine, while not a zeitgeber in the traditional sense, profoundly impacts the homeostatic drive to sleep. As mentioned earlier, it blocks adenosine receptors in the brain. Adenosine accumulates the longer we are awake, making us feel progressively sleepier. Caffeine masks this signal, which is why it creates a temporary sense of wakefulness. However, the half-life of caffeine is about 5-6 hours, meaning that if you drink coffee at 4 p.m., about half of that caffeine is still active in your system by 10 p.m., and a quarter remains at 4 a.m. The result is that even if you fall asleep, your sleep is likely to be lighter and more fragmented. Cutting off caffeine intake by early afternoon, usually no later than 2 p.m., is a practical rule for most people. Another often overlooked component is social timing. The human circadian system is not only responsive to environmental cues, but also to social rhythms. Interacting with others, exposure to speech, and even social media engagement all produce dopamine activity in the brain, reinforcing wakefulness. Engaging in highly stimulating conversations or content late at night can inadvertently push the circadian phase later, particularly in adolescents and young adults whose clocks naturally tend to run later. This makes it especially important to create wind-down routines that signal to the brain that it's time to reduce stimulation and prepare for sleep. Jet lag, shift work, and irregular sleep schedules disrupt this circadian system dramatically. Crossing time zones forces the SCN and peripheral clocks out of sync with the new light-dark cycle. For instance, flying from New York to London involves a 5-hour advance, which can take several days to adjust to. One way to reduce this adjustment period is through strategic light exposure and melatonin in supplementation. Getting bright light at the appropriate time in the new time zone and using low-dose melatonin in the evening can help re-entrain the circadian system more rapidly. However, mistimed exposure can worsen the misalignment, so these strategies must be applied carefully. Shift work presents an even greater challenge because it asks the circadian system to invert its natural rhythm, a task it was never designed for. Night shift workers often experience chronic misalignment between their internal clock and their external obligations. Long-term consequences include increased risk for cardiovascular disease, metabolic disorders, and mood disturbances. While full adaptation is nearly impossible, mitigation strategies such as daytime light avoidance, blackout curtains, and bright artificial light during work hours can reduce the health toll. All of this points to a core principle in circadian science. Timing is everything. It's not just about what you do, it's about when you do it. Aligning your behaviors with your internal biological clock enhances everything from sleep to performance to mental health. When your light exposure, feeding, activity, and social rhythms are in sync with your circadian biology, sleep becomes easier, deeper, and more restorative. Your circadian rhythm is a system you can train just like a muscle or a skill. It responds to consistency, pattern, and feedback. The more regular your behaviors are, the stronger and more resilient your sleep-wake cycles become. And in a world that increasingly asks us to stay up later, scroll longer, and work across time zones, reclaiming your rhythm is both a scientific challenge and a personal opportunity. When we talk about deep, restorative sleep, we are referring not only to the number of hours you spend in bed, but more importantly, the quality of those hours, how much time you spend in the crucial phases of sleep like slow, wave sleep, deep non-REM and REM sleep, how consolidated your sleep is, and how refreshed you feel the next day. Sleep depth determines everything from how well your brain clears toxins, to how efficiently you encode memories, to how resilient your immune system is, and how stable your mood and energy levels are. Fortunately, there are a variety of tools rooted in neuroscience and behavioral biology that can dramatically improve the depth and quality of your sleep. These tools fall into three main categories: behavioral protocols, nutritional inputs, and evidence-based supplements. And while sleep may seem like something we do passively, the science tells us otherwise. Deep sleep is something we can actively prepare for, protect, and enhance with consistent daily actions. Let's begin with behavior. One of the most important and underappreciated tools for deep sleep is something known as sleep regularity, going to bed and waking up at roughly the same time every day, including weekends. This consistency helps to stabilize the body's circadian rhythm and trains the brain to expect sleep at a predictable time. Irregular sleep schedules, even if total sleep time remains constant, fragment sleep architecture, reducing the amount of deep and REM sleep achieved in a given night. Equally powerful is a wind-down routine in the hour before sleep. This is not just about relaxation, it's about engaging in behaviors that signal to the nervous system that it's safe to transition into parasympathetic dominance, the rest and digest state necessary for high-quality sleep. Activities like dimming the lights, turning off screens, reading physical books, doing light stretching, or engaging in non-stimulating, repetitive tasks help lower autonomic arousal. One particularly effective technique is NSDR non-sleep deep rest protocols, which include yoga nidra, body scanning, or cyclic sighing, a pattern of 2 inhales followed by a long exhale. These practices directly shift the brain and body into a state conducive to sleep by lowering heart rate, reducing sympathetic tone, and encouraging theta wave production. The temperature of the sleep environment also plays a vital role. Core body temperature must drop approximately 1 degree C to fall asleep and stay asleep. This drop is part of a natural thermoregulatory cycle that begins a few hours before bed. To support it, sleeping in a cool room between 60-68 degrees F, 16-20 degrees C is ideal. Additionally, cooling the feet or hands, or using cooling pads or bedding materials that promote heat dispersion, can enhance sleep depth. A warm bath or shower taken 90 minutes before bed might seem contradictory, but it causes surface vasodilation and triggers a post-immersion cooling effect, helping induce sleep faster and improving deep sleep. Light exposure is another behavioral tool that works indirectly but powerfully on sleep quality. Getting 5-10 minutes of bright natural sunlight within an hour of waking helps set the cortisol and melatonin in rhythm correctly. But what matters just as much is avoiding artificial bright light exposure in the 1-2 hours before sleep. Blue spectrum light from screens and overhead LEDs suppresses melatonin and shifts the circadian clock later. Wearing blue light, blocking glasses in the evening, dimming screens, and using software that warms color temperature can minimize these effects. Ideally, the last hour before bed should be screen-free with lighting resembling that of a campfire. warm, low, and indirect. Now, moving to nutrition, we find that the timing, composition, and quality of your diet can influence sleep architecture. One major principle is not eating too close to bedtime. Large meals activate digestion, increase core body temperature, and delay the drop needed for sleep onset. Meals should ideally be completed at least 2-3 hours before sleep. That said, a small snack rich in tryptophan, containing foods like almonds, turkey, or oats, can be beneficial for some people. Tryptophan is a precursor to serotonin, which in turn is a precursor to melatonin, and in the right conditions may promote relaxation and improved sleep onset. Moreover, what you eat during the day can influence sleep at night. Diets rich in whole foods, especially those high in magnesium, potassium, and omega-3 fatty acids, are associated with more efficient sleep cycles. Magnesium, in particular, supports GABAergic neurotransmission, which is calming to the brain. It reduces neuronal excitability and supports the downregulation of the nervous system before bed. Similarly, potassium aids in muscle relaxation and maintaining normal electrical activity in the brain during sleep. Hydration is also critical. Dehydration leads to an increase in wakefulness and reduced REM. However, drinking too much fluid late in the evening can lead to nocturia, waking up to urinate, which fragments sleep. The best strategy is to load hydration earlier in the day, and taper water intake 1-2 hours before bed. Adding a pinch of sea salt or electrolytes during the day can also aid in cellular hydration without burdening the kidneys excessively before sleep. Now let's address supplementation, which can be effective when used correctly, but should never be the first line of action. Supplements are not sedatives. The goal is not to force unconsciousness, but to support the body's natural capacity to enter restorative sleep. The most well-known supplement is melatonin, which is a hormone, not a sedative. It signals darkness to the body and helps initiate the transition to sleep, especially when taken at the right time and in the right dose. The optimal dose for most people is between 0, 3 mg and 1 mg, far lower than most over-the-counter products, which range from 3 to 10 mg. Higher doses can desensitize melatonin receptors over time and even disrupt sleep architecture. Melatonin is particularly useful for shifting the circadian rhythm, such as in jet lag or delayed sleep phase, rather than for maintaining sleep through the night. Another effective compound is magnesium threonate or magnesium bisglycinate, which crosses the blood-brain barrier and supports calming neurotransmission. A typical dose is 200-400 mg, taken 30-60 minutes before bed. It can reduce anxiety, muscle tension, and nighttime awakenings. Additionally, theanine, an amino acid found in green tea, promotes alpha wave activity and has a calming effect without sedation. A dose of 100-200 mg before bed has been shown to reduce time to sleep onset and improve sleep efficiency, especially in anxious individuals. Apigenin, a flavonoid found in chamomile, acts as a mild GABA agonist and can be taken at doses of 50 mg to support relaxation. Similarly, glycine, an amino acid that lowers core body temperature and enhances REM sleep, can be taken at 3-5 grams before bed. It also supports cognitive performance the next day due to its role in glutamatergic modulation. Some people may benefit from inositol, particularly those who wake up in the middle of the night due to anxious or racing thoughts. Inositol supports serotonin in signaling and stabilizes blood sugar. It's often taken in doses of 1-2 grams. One more powerful, but less commonly discussed tool is cognitive unloading, which involves journaling or writing out worries before bed. Studies show that writing down a to-do list or capturing unresolved thoughts on paper reduces sleep latency by clearing working memory. The brain, when unburdened by unresolved loops, finds it easier to disengage from planning and enter a resting state. Alcohol deserves specific mention. While it may subjectively feel like it helps people fall asleep, alcohol is a central nervous system depressant that disrupts sleep architecture, suppresses REM, and fragments the second half of night. Its metabolites also increase heart rate and body temperature, two factors that impair sleep depth. If consumed, it should be limited and stopped several hours before bed to allow for metabolic clearance. Nicotine, THC, and even some over-the-counter antihistamines also impair sleep architecture over time. While THC may assist with sleep onset, long-term use has been associated with reduced REM sleep and tolerance buildup. Similarly, diphenhydramine, found in many sleep aids, can produce grogginess without improving actual sleep quality. It's crucial to prioritize natural sleep, promoting behaviors over dependence on sleep, inducing drugs. Another useful tool is sound modulation. White, pink, or brown noise can mask environmental disturbances and promote deeper sleep by reducing the brain's reactivity to random sounds. Unlike silence, these low-frequency sound patterns help stabilize the auditory cortex and can enhance sleep continuity, especially in noisy environments or during travel. Heart rate variability, HRV-enhancing tools such as slow, diaphragmatic breathing or HRV training apps can also prime the parasympathetic system. An example is box breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. This type of intentional breathwork reduces heart rate, lowers cortisol, and improves transition to sleep, particularly in high-stress individuals. Ultimately, the goal of all these tools is not just to knock you out, but to create a neurobiological context in which sleep can unfold naturally. That means low stress hormones, stable blood sugar, low inflammation, cool body temperature, minimal environmental noise and light, and a consistent circadian framework. You're not just sleeping, you're allowing the brain and body to do what they are intrinsically wired to do: repair, consolidate, detoxify, and regulate. Sleep is an emergent property. When the right behaviors, nutrients, and neurochemicals are in place, deep sleep is not something you chase. It's something that reliably shows up. Sleep is not just a passive state. It is a dynamic process that reshapes the brain and body, consolidates learning, strengthens emotional regulation, and modulates almost every major physiological system. When we talk about optimizing sleep over the long term, we are discussing more than hacks or short-term interventions. We're talking about training the brain, nervous system, and hormonal cycles into a stable, resilient architecture that supports deep rest across the lifespan. The foundation of long-term sleep optimization lies in neural plasticity, the brain's ability to change its structure and function in response to experience. Just as you can rewire your brain through repeated physical training, focused attention, or learning, you can also train your brain and body to sleep better. The plastic nature of the circadian system, sleep-wake pathways, and homeostatic regulators means that habits and environmental inputs, repeated consistently, can lead to significant and lasting improvements in sleep quality. One of the key concepts in sleep science is the two-process model of sleep regulation, the interaction between the circadian rhythm and the homeostatic sleep drive. The circadian rhythm is the brain's internal 24-hour clock, regulated primarily by light exposure and anchored in a region called the suprachiasmatic nucleus (SCN) in the hypothalamus. This internal clock dictates when melatonin is released, when cortisol peaks, when alertness is optimal, and when the body wants to sleep. Meanwhile, the homeostatic sleep drive is more like a pressure system. From the moment you wake up, adenosine, an inhibitory neuromodulator, builds up in the brain. The longer you stay awake, the more adenosine accumulates, increasing sleep pressure. Sleep clears adenosine levels, particularly during deep, slow-wave sleep. Long-term sleep optimization requires that both of these systems function properly and in synchrony. This means aligning your wake-up and sleep time with your individual circadian profile and ensuring that your days are active enough, both physically and cognitively, to build strong sleep pressure. One of the ways to reinforce this synchrony is through consistent timing of light exposure, exercise, feeding, and social interaction, which are known as Zeitgebers or time givers. The strongest Zeitgeber is light. Exposing your eyes to bright natural sunlight early in the morning within 30-60 minutes of waking is one of the most potent actions you can take to reinforce your circadian rhythm and anchor your body's internal clock. This input helps the ASEAN suppress melatonin, increase alertness, and establish a consistent rhythm for all downstream systems, including body temperature, hormone secretion, and gene expression. The effects of this regular input accumulate. After several days to weeks of consistent light exposure, the circadian clock begins to predict the timing of sleep and wakefulness more accurately. This leads to easier sleep onset, fewer nighttime awakenings, and more robust architecture in the form of extended deep and REM phases. In the context of neural plasticity, what this means is that the ASEAN, your brain's master clock, actually strengthens its rhythmic output through repeated training. The internal rhythms of cortisol, melatonin, and core body temperature become more pronounced and better aligned, improving sleep quality and daytime energy in a cell-free, enforcing loop. But light is not the only time giver. Exercise, when done consistently and at the right time of day, also modulates circadian biology and improves sleep quality. Morning or early afternoon exercise enhances sleep onset and duration by increasing body temperature during the day and promoting a stronger cooling signal in the evening, which is necessary for sleep initiation. Regular physical activity also increases sleep pressure by increasing adenosine buildup and enhancing slow wave sleep. Importantly, chronic high-intensity exercise late in the evening can delay sleep onset by increasing catecholamines and core body temperature, so for long-term optimization, it's best to schedule intense workouts earlier in the day. However, light stretching or low-impact movement in the evening can aid in the wind-down process and improve transition into deep rest. Another factor in long-term sleep plasticity is the predictable timing of food intake. Feeding cycles provide metabolic cues to the hypothalamus and liver, both of which are involved in circadian rhythm regulation. Eating your largest meals during daylight hours and avoiding late night snacking reinforces circadian alignment. Irregular or inconsistent feeding times can desynchronize peripheral clocks from the central ASEAN clock, leading to circadian misalignment, a condition that disrupts sleep, metabolism, and mood regulation. Just as repeated physical activity can improve cardiovascular fitness, repeated behaviors that support circadian alignment strengthen the brain's ability to anticipate and enter sleep efficiently. Over time, these practices literally rewire the circuits in the hypothalamus, brainstem, and thalamus that regulate transitions between wakefulness, light sleep, deep sleep, and REM. Furthermore, temperature regulation exhibits long-term plasticity. When the body learns to associate cool environments with sleep, it begins to anticipate and support that transition more efficiently. This means that consistently sleeping in a cool, dark room doesn't just help in the short term. It trains the body and brain to recognize environmental signals as triggers for sleep initiation and deeper rest. One of the most compelling aspects of long-term sleep optimization involves emotional regulation and limbic system rewiring. Chronic stress, both acute and long-term, activates the hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal HPA axis, elevating cortisol, increasing alertness, and disrupting sleep initiation and maintenance. But the brain is adaptive. Through repeated calming practices like mindfulness, breathwork, and non-sleep deep rest NSDR, you can lower baseline sympathetic tone, increase parasympathetic resilience, and change how your limbic system responds to perceived threats. Regular mindfulness or meditative practice, for instance, has been shown to decrease activity in the amygdala, enhance prefrontal limbic regulation, and reduce nighttime rumination. Over time, this reduces hyperarousal, a major cause of insomnia. This is plasticity in action. You're not just calming yourself in the moment. You're rewiring your default response to stress and making your nervous system more sleep permissive over the long run. The glymphatic system, which clears toxins and metabolic waste from the brain during deep sleep, also benefits from long-term optimization. Deep sleep promotes cerebrospinal fluid flow through the brain's interstitial spaces, removing beta, amyloid, and other compounds associated with neurodegeneration. When sleep is regularly deep and uninterrupted, this cleansing process becomes more efficient and protective. The glymphatic system appears to function best during slow-wave sleep, particularly when the body is in a side-sleeping posture. In terms of cognitive and memory consolidation, sleep acts as a powerful enhancer of neuroplasticity. Deep sleep consolidates declarative memories and skill acquisition, while REM sleep strengthens emotional processing and creativity. This is why long-term sleep optimization is crucial for students, performers, and anyone in a cognitively demanding profession. The more consistently you get high-quality sleep, the more you benefit from the compounding effects of neural adaptation, learning, and integration. Importantly, long-term optimization also means learning how to recover from disruptions. Travel, illness, stress, or unavoidable all-nighters will happen. The brain's sleep systems are adaptable, and part of resilience involves knowing how to reset or rebound. Strategies like front-loading sleep after deprivation, getting extra sunlight the morning after a late night, or using short naps under 90 minutes to bridge the gap without fragmenting the next night's sleep can help the system recover. Over time, a brain and body that have been trained with regular timing, supportive routines, healthy stress modulation, and circadian aligned behaviors become robust. That means fewer nights of insomnia, more rapid sleep onset, deeper sleep, and improved energy across the board. The internal environment becomes conditioned to support rest rather than resist it. This doesn't require perfection. What it requires is consistency, the most powerful form of plasticity training. Consistency reinforces the association between behavioral cues and internal biological states. When you wake, eat, move, and rest in predictable patterns, the brain anticipates what's coming next and primes your physiology accordingly. This anticipatory nature of the brain is a powerful ally. It means that once you've built these habits into your life, your sleep system will begin to function with greater efficiency, less effort, and more predictability. Falling asleep becomes easier, staying asleep becomes automatic, and waking up becomes refreshing. In the long arc of optimizing sleep, the goal isn't to become dependent on any single tool. Instead, it's about building a system, a set of inputs that, when repeated, create a sleep-promoting environment within the body and brain. This includes behavioral inputs like light, movement, and temperature, psychological inputs like mindset and stress buffering, and physiological inputs like nutrition and supplementation. When needed, sleep optimization is a form of training. Like strength training or language learning, the benefits accumulate with consistency and intention. With time, the architecture of your sleep improves: longer deep sleep, more consolidated REM, fewer awakenings, and enhanced next-day performance. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to experience the protective and generative aspects of sleep, not only in your energy and focus, but in your emotional resilience, immune function, memory, and capacity for growth. Sleep becomes not just recovery, but enhancement, not just rest, but readiness. That's the promise of long-term sleep optimization grounded in the science of neuroplasticity, that rest is not merely passive, but one of the most powerful, trainable tools for brain and body transformation.